Alrighty, welcome to another episode of the One Last Cast podcast. My name is Jonathan, and as always, we have Merrill Solesky here. Say hi, Merrill.
How's it going, guys?
Uh, it's going to be another hot week. Next few weeks, I'm waiting for the first cold front to actually come through. It's mid-September right now, and it's still hot.
Yeah, the last couple of days it's been cooling down, and what I mean by cooling down, it's like not in the hundreds. So I mean that's cooling down for us. This whole year it's just been really hot.
You know what's really funny? One of the cool features I like about Facebook um, is that it has the Facebook memories that pop up from when you're posting from like years and years ago. I had a post I think yesterday on the Facebook memories where I think I was in college and I was like, wow, it feels so nice today. The highs are only going to be in the 80 and the lows are in like the 60s or something like that. I'm like, man, that feels so nice. What's happening here?
Yeah. So I mean I heard a rumor, right, that they said the hotter the summers, the cooler the winters, the colder the winters. I don't know if that's true or not. What do you think?
I don't know. I don't have my data in front of me, but that would be something we could probably figure out. So maybe in the next maybe in a post throughout the week we can kind of look at that and see if we have whenever we have hot summers we have cold winters. Because I would love me a cold winter. Um, Before we get any further into our episode where we can talk about kayak accessories today, because I think there's just so much to go into. But with that, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Shout out to Foray Printing. If you're looking for custom merch, towels, shirts, or anything like that, Aaron will take care of you. Go to Foray Printing. He has a custom buff that he made for us. I just actually had my fantasy draft for fantasy football this past week or two ago, and he made custom towels for us, basically telling my competition I can wipe the floor with them. Uh, um,
Nice,
and
nice.
we have DSKA, Dirty South Kayak Anglers. If you're looking for a good Facebook group to go be a part of, to talk kayak fishing and all that stuff, go to DSKA or Dirty South Kayak Anglers. Which, by the way, if you want to be a part of a good community and talk to us about kayak fishing, just go and like our Facebook page at facebook.com/one last cast podcast. We also have Knocking Tail Lures. They're our go-to soft plastics. It has an internal rattle on the tail. It's just an irresistible action that it just makes some really good soft plastics. Go to Knocking Tail Lures to do an order, or you can find it at one of our local retailers, especially here in Houston and in Texas. They're all over the place. FTU, Anglers Anonymous, and the like. Also, want to give a big shout out to Brittany Solesky. If you're looking for real estate in either commercial or residential, give her a call. She will help hook you up. She told me to tell y'all that she will catch you the best deal out there. So, fishing related pun in regards to real estate there. I didn't know how that would work out, but that worked out really well. If you're looking for something like that, give her a call at 281-740-0498 or Brittany at grindstonereg.com. And before we, Paul in our chat says that you can get those knocking tail lures at Line Cutters LLC as well as in Columbia, Texas, I believe. And those, if actually, yeah. So if you want to get those, that's out there as well. Which, by the way, if you want to talk to us, we are live every other Tuesday. We try to be. We're a little bit late this month, but try to be live every other Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. So you can join us, talk to us, chat with us at facebook.com/one last cast podcast, or we're also on YouTube where you can find us there as well. Merrill, before we get into more accessory talk on kayaks, how's fishing been? I know that we kind of talked about stories. We are trading stories as we before we got on air, but
Yes.
I've been struggling this whole year. Let me hear some good fishing stories. That way, that I can feel better about myself or something like that.
Well, I'm definitely guilty with the stories. But man, I got a story, right? But it's a good one. But I mean, I've been struggling too myself going offshore, seeing the tarpon and not hooking up. But I think that's probably because I'm not spending enough time out in the water. I think that last time I went, it was like 2 hours, and I got to see what I needed to see. But driving that way, unloading the yak, seeing them, didn't really hook up. Had stuff to do. My life has been really busy lately, so I haven't been fishing as much as I like. But I do like to share a story. When I took off the Corpus, I met up with a group of guys that they're actually following us now. Where I have a couple walk up spots where I go fish up. We probably have some in Galveston, but I kind of grew up with these walk up spots where I fish in Corpus. And I met these group of guys out there, and they were fishing on one side of a bridge, and I was fishing the other side. And I guess they could see all the trout coming up, splashing, and like, man, what are you throwing? What are you doing? And I think they had live shrimp at popping cork, and I was fishing artificials. And I was explaining it to him. I was like, man, you go into depth with this stuff. And I was like, man, my dad taught me, how to fish, and I kind of just studied as long as I gone. And sometimes people get in these habits where like they just think like, man, if there's trout here, live shrimp, popping cork, it'll work all the time. But I was changing this area I'm kind of used to, and I'm fishing, and I use these certain artificials. So I ran into those guys, and I think we ended up all catching our limits. So I mean, that took about a good like 5 hours, and I think I slept like for 2 hours that day because the next day I had to go back to the property that I was fixing up and be there early to meet up with some people to get some estimates on some stuff that needed to get done. So wasn't much of a sleep night for me, but good news is all four of us caught our limits, and I think they're going to have a fish fry, and their whole family's going to be happy and enjoying that fish fry. Shout out to Mark, Jacob, and I don't remember the other two guys' names. I think one was Abraham. Well, don't get mad at me if you're listening or if you do listen to it, but I remember the other two guys. But
Yeah,
appreciate you guys, and we got some new followers in the group, so that's always a good thing.
yeah, it's very interesting to um I know during the week when we're trying to figure out what we're going to be talking about this week, you wanted to mention the whole argument about live bait versus artificial, and I know we could go into that, but I think
Yes.
we need to flesh that out a little more, um, because I think that fishing with live bait, if you if you fish exclusively with live bait, um, you know what? I'm not even going to go into it. That's for another time. Uh,
Yeah, let's talk about that next time.
yeah,
Yeah,
we'll go. Yeah, but
maybe I should have
it
told a different story where like an accessory on my
no,
kayak
no,
helped
no,
me
that
out,
no,
right? That
it's
would have been
it's
a good one.
fine. It's fine. Let's go into what we wanted to talk about, which is kayak accessories today. So you got your brand new shiny kayak or new to you kayak, or especially in my case where I just don't buy brand new. um, and you want to accessorize it. We briefly talked about this in our previous episode. We always touch on accessories, but we wanted to dedicate a whole entire episode to accessories. Merrill, I asked you to kind of come up with your top five, and you came up with a list of 10 or something like that.
Well, yeah, I think I did one for inshore and I did one for offshore, but I know I'm missing a lot of things, so don't get mad like, bro, how could you forget this and that? So keep in mind, we're talking about accessories other than the safety stuff, which we'll
Yeah,
probably do a brief one over the safety stuff that's important. But I don't want to get lost in safety topic because I feel like we could waste the whole hour just talking about safety, how important it is, and how each piece of safety equipment, I think I've experienced enough where it actually helped me, right? I was in a situation where that safety equipment was necessary, but I don't want to get caught up in that. So we're talking about accessories that help us in our accomplishments on the kayak, whatever
yeah,
it may be.
yeah. So, uh, let's go through. How do we want to do this? I'll go ahead and start with my list,
Okay,
and then you add to the list. I'm sure we overlap in
right,
some of these things. So and we'll go through them, and then we overlap, and you'll just add on to it, and then we'll move on from there.
right.
So the first one, one of the big things, and this is in no particular order in terms of importance. It's just whatever I have. Um, Number one is definitely anchor trolley, um, that I have onto my list right here. The two options that I give people because they're just readily available, and I have the Yak Attack one, the Yak Attack lever lock, which is around $40. You can find online, and then the Yak Gear one, which is 35. Um, the reason why I like the lever lock one is just because I do like the lever lock action where it basically, if you're in a high current situation or high swell situation, you do want that give. So you don't want to lock it in place in case you don't want to capsize your kayak or flip over your kayak. But in a situation where you're in a slight current and you need to be in a just right position, you definitely want that lever lock where you can just lock in your your anchor trolley so it just stays in that one position. Um, what would you think about the anchor trolley? Is that I'm sure that's on your list somewhere.
No, it isn't.
Oh, it's
I
not.
don't. No, I don't anchor up anywhere. I'm
Oh,
pedal driven. Um, I've used it before. I'm not the type of person that posts up on a drain or a spot. And if I do use it, it's usually like one of those situations like that I anchor. It's like I'm anchoring up. Like they let us launch off at a certain time, but you can't cast till 6 o'clock, and you want to get to a spot. So that's probably the only time I really use an anchor is I'll post up in that spot until the time, like 6 or whatever, 6:30, 7 o'clock, and then I pull my anchor up, start casting.
I see.
Um, yeah, but I have used that one. But I mean, also with that anchor, like people that use an anchor, when I did use anchors way back when, um, how important is how much line you let off on those anchors? So keep in mind when you have an anchor trolley and you're using an anchor in like bigger, deeper current waters, sometimes you need a little bit more rope or string or however you got the anchor drop down to the anchor trolley. Or is this strictly for shallow water for you?
Yeah, no, so this is I don't I own a Bruce Call anchor, which is what I'd recommend, but I hardly ever use it. Actually, I it has not left my garage in 6, 7 years. It's always by the stakeout pole, which I actually have on here as well. That's later. I'll talk about that later. But with the anchor trolley, so it's basically whenever you do anchor, it gives you the opportunity to position yourself in the way that you want. Um, in some areas where I'm fishing, especially deep water, especially during the winter, um, sometimes a fish will just stack up in a very very small area, and it could be where it's really windy or the current's working. I don't want to continuously work and pedal to keep myself in a position. So I'll go as shallow as I can and close to where the fish are, stake out there, and I'll just that way I'm positioned and I'm right there on where the fish are feeding. Um, and it's it's amount as you're talking about the amount of line being let out, and I guess that would be more of the stakeout pole question. It just depends on what the water conditions are doing. Sometimes I literally have like 3 feet of line attached out, and send the line to my anchor to the front of the bow of the kayak, and that's it. But if I'm in really really wavy conditions or you know sketchy times, I let out as much line as possible. So therefore, there's um, lot more tolerance and whenever give from that line in being out there, you don't want it too short where it's just putting a lot of stress on the kayak and on the line itself. You want to just give it as much as you can. Paul on our chat recommends also to get the HD version, which has a back in place, that's totally correct. It's a little more expensive, but the HD version of the lever lock has a backing plate onto it, and it just gives you a little bit of extra reinforcement, especially if you're like to anchor a lot in those high um, current and wavy conditions.
Yeah, you
So
bring up a good point about the. I don't like to keep pedaling. I always do that. Right, we're in like I'm in a kayak where pedal driven is a must for me. And once I learned how to use it, I guess my legs are always moving. Sometimes it's just a natural movement of how to stay up in current and hold the rudder and hold position and to fish at one spot. But I do move around a lot. I'm like more of a move around fisherman. I have been at the causeway, right? I want to talk about this. So a guy anchored, his name was Robert. You might remember this story. Robert anchored down, straight down, and the current was ripping. Waves were a little bit choppy. I think we might have had 1 to 2s and maybe 3s. I don't know. And he anchored straight down. And what happened is the anchor got hung up on some kind of structure on the bottom. And when it whipped his kayak around, the water overcame the kayak because there was not enough rope for where it anchored down to where his kayak was on top of the water. So what happened is the water overcame the kayak. He ended up, floating. Somebody picked him up and brought him back in. So using deeper waters or bigger waters, if you have the stakeout pole, perfect, right? You're in that situation where you can stake out and still be in enough water where you can stake out. But sometimes when you're fishing deeper waters, maybe 8, 9 feet or more, and your stakeout pole is not that big to anchor you down, make sure you have enough rope for that anchor.
Yeah. Um, and of course, if you want the janky way, janky anchor trolley or the DIY, I know for kayakers, there's always DIY people. It's literally just utilize uh, the the way that I've seen it that's effective is utilize the carry handles on both ends of the kayak as you run your line through it, um, and then you tie a little knot, and then you do a pad eye, right, basically where your paddle would be, or your paddle keeper, and that's basically your homemade anchor troll. Of course, you have a little ring, get a stainless steel ring, you tie it to that, and then you run that as your anchor point on your kayak. Um, so
Yeah, that would be really good if you want to drill any new holes in your kayak, right? Some people like
well,
drilling holes in their
you would have
kayak.
to
They're just
do
like,
it. You would have to do it on the pad high. So the reason why
okay, so
you
you couldn't do it to the rod holder, like there's a or the I mean the paddle holders.
yeah,
Remember there's
actually no, you could do it to the some of the paddle keepers. They're already pre-drilled holes. So you could just add to that. Yeah, that would be one way. Um, but I know that's just one option if you don't want to drill into your kayak. Um, as another accessory, and I know that you have one to show, is extra rod holder. So a lot of your kayaks, I know there's a lot of people who get recreational kayaks who convert it to fishing. And they're like, oh, I need rod holders. What rod holders recommendations do you have?
I mean I suggest different ones, but I'll show you the one that I use for offshore. I use this one for offshore. So it has a lever right here to open it, like to change it in a certain way. So this part sits in the rod holder. Sorry, there's a little bit of mud that fell off. This part right here goes into the rod holder. And usually I have this part right here pointing to the outside of the kayak. So I can adjust it how I want, and I could change this depending on the reel that I have. I use this for my conventional, and I'll use this side for my spin. So I would adjust that in a way where I have my conventional faced in a certain way. So when I'm trolling, and that's you change that position with this one, and you got two straps that can strap onto your kayak so it doesn't go anywhere. So when a fish does hit it, you're not going to lose a rod holder. You grab your rod, and I also leash the rod to this. And this is the one I use for offshore. So I troll a lot offshore for different fish, mainly for kingfish and tarpon. Um, Hobies, they have a shallow rod holder, and I don't know if people experience this, but man, it's not comfortable when you're putting rods and you're trolling and you only got like this much of your rod inside the rod holders. So they do sell like these tubes rod holders that you could put in there. And you could also a rod holder up front too helps like when you're fishing inshore. That way when you're catching a fish, you could set it down and you could deal with the fish. So I used to not use a lot of rod holders, but over time they became very important and convenient. Like when catching fish inshore, I could just put it in the rod holder and then I could deal with the fish. Or if I'm trolling offshore, they're in the back. Or some people like them up front so they can grab them quicker. I like them in the back because they're out of the way. They're not in any of the mess that I have up front, whether it be snacks or more snacks and water. But sometimes I'm switching out baits and stuff like that. But yeah, definitely a good rod holder that suits your needs for what you're trying to accomplish. I use this one for trolling,
Yeah.
and you can get the regular just tubes that fit into your rod holder. I do recommend them for the Hobie Outbacks because I feel like they're a little shallow.
Yeah, and some of those, especially for those recreational kayaks, you can buy those tubes to drill into your kayak. It You do have to make a hole in your kayak. There's plenty of videos online to do that. And one thing that that I think that I wanted to mention with whenever you're trolling is especially if you're trolling for larger fish, because if you're trolling for like I mean, sometimes you troll like a lure going from spot to spot and a trout hits it. And that doesn't really matter. But when you're trolling for bigger fish, and they hit it, it's very difficult to turn around even in the rod holder, and it's your rod is set in there, and it's it doesn't fly out. Um, to pick up straight up as a fish is pulling back away from you, because you're going against the fish, and it's just very difficult to turn around, pick it up, go and just pick it up like that. That's why those extra, having a little bit higher, or some other rod tubes. Some of them have like, they angle off to the side, and they have like a swivel clip to lock it into place. Some of those like the Omega Pro. I don't know if that one's would be good for offshore, but something like that. Uh, the Yak Attack Omega Pro. That one is one I would have if I had extra rod holders. A lot of kayaks nowadays have those tracks built in, and you can just add any accessory. Um, they have any accessory that you have out there. So from fish finders to whatever else, you can attach it to those tracks, and that makes it easy. No drilling on your part.
I forgot to mention, like, this is the Hobie brand one. So, so I mean, you know,
Yeah,
you can get. I think does a Yak Attack or Railblazer make anything like this
yeah.
similar to
Yak
this?
Attack, Yak. Both of them make similar stuff like that. So.
Where you
Uh,
can adjust it like the angle you want,
mhm,
and then okay, cool. Yeah,
yeah.
well, you don't have
Yep.
to. These might be a little bit pricier because of the emblem on it, but
You're paying for the names. Merrill's being bougie over here with all the Hobie brand stuff.
just a tad, just a
Just a
tad.
tad.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think, and also, whenever you're installing this, I had this happen a lot with, whenever I was working at FTU doing installations. Um, oh yeah, David, Max over here on our chat saying that Yak Attack has this the Zuka tube, and so does Rail Table. So the very similar ones that they have
I've been
as well.
enjoying David's content on Instagram. I guess that's where I have him. Keep up the fishing, but I enjoy your posts, man.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, put up your Insta handle, and we'll give it a shout out, because always some good content out there. Um, one thing that whenever you do want install rod holders, is that you need to sit in your kayak and understand where it needs to go. Very often when I was working and doing installs on kayaks, it's like, oh yeah, I want these two rod holders, and then they're gone, installed. Um, and it it's I can definitely, we did the installation based upon the best information that we had, but at the same time, it's ideal that you sit in the kayak and like, okay, if I'm reaching over to my left shoulder or my right shoulder, can I reach it if I install it right here? Because there has been some times wherever, you do it and it's like, man, I wish it was closer to me, or I wish it was further away from me, like an inch or two. And that doesn't sound like a lot, but everybody has different range of motions. Obviously what you can always do is just side saddle your kayak and take it out. But whenever in the heat of the moment, you don't want to, especially if you're battling big fish, you don't want to move your center of gravity and pick up a thing, and just increases your chance of flipping your kayak. So sit in the kayak and like, okay, I can reach this. This is where I want the rod holder to be. I can reach it there, and then that's when you do your install. Same thing with the front of the kayak too.
Yeah,
So
and not all rod holders are equal. Um, like you mentioned, find the right rod holder for you. Some people like the ones that go in the track mount. I don't like that one. There's different rod holders, so make sure you get the one that suits you best.
yeah,
Whatever feels, what is the word, ergonomic for you, I guess, on the
yeah, yeah,
um,
ergonomic.
yeah.
Yeah, and
So
to see Max's content, that's Mac Z Fishing, so MAKZ Fishing with FISHIN. You can look at his content on Instagram, some good stuff there. But yeah, just find one that works for you. And like I said, just kind of understand your own ergonomics and how you work and how you can turn and do all that stuff. Um, moving forward, I know you don't have this on here because I when I looked at your list, I didn't see it, but a drift sock. Um,
I actually do have a drift sock.
oh, okay,
Yeah,
man.
I use, but I use it for, I think, a different reason than you use it. Go ahead.
Okay, well, I use it for the intended purpose of slowing down drifts whenever you're going through, like, you're going over a shell reef or something, and you just don't want to burn through it. Um, so I have the drift sock that I got from my first kayak I ever got in like 2011. I still have it, and it's still in my Revo right now. It's a Marine Raider drift sock. That's like $13. You only I think you only need the small one because it's according to everything online, it's like for a boat, so it's between 16 and 20 feet, which your kayak is like 12 foot. Actually, at the time I got the Tarpon 160, so it was like 16. That makes sense, you know. But uh, the drift sock is very, very helpful for you covering water. Um, and it saved me more often than times in regards to like, I'm covering water, I'm trying to look for fish, and it's it helps me find the fish. So, now I'm very interested to hear what you use it for. So
So I use it for a hat. No, I'm just kidding. Not Harry just there the just talking here. Hey, what's up, man? No, no, I use it for when I'm coming in. So when I'm coming in and there's bigger waves, we'll say 3 to 4s. I'll use a drift sock and make sure you have enough feet on that back behind me to pull me behind. So it pulls me backwards as the wave's trying to push me forward so I don't flip my kayak. And that's worked for me. I mean, I'm just sitting on 3 to 4s, just bringing me in. No big issues, crashing over my back end, crashing over my back, and my kayak. So when the waves pushing me forward, my drift sock's pulling me back. So it's been working miracles for me, and that's when I use my drift sock, and that's how I
yeah,
use
I
my
would
drift
imagine
sock.
also it helps you so that you stay straight because you have this bend
Right.
pulling back against you, and you're not turning with each way. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
that's pretty ingenious.
Well, another
Um,
thing is like make sure you have enough feet, right? So me and Victor were out on the tandem island,
yeah,
uh, and I think he only had like 10 feet or 20 feet or maybe 20. It wasn't enough. So the sock, I'm looking behind it, and we're in a big old TI, and it collapsed. So I'm there like, holy crap. And he's like focusing on the front, like making sure everything's all right in this big old catamaran TI. And so I'm over here like, man, I started pulling on the sock so it could open back up, and finally it caught. So when it pushed, it like, this rope ran through my hands, and so I had to make sure that the sock would catch because it was collapsing in between the waves and it was too close to us. We needed it further behind us, that way it's opening up behind the waves as the other waves was pushing us forward. So always make sure you have enough rope on that sock.
yeah.
And make sure it's centered behind you, right? You don't want it off to the side and it's pulling you this way, right? So making sure
Yeah,
that.
and actually the drift sock, and that goes along with the anchor trolley. Whenever you're drifting, having the ability to do it towards the front of the kayak or the back of the kayak or in the middle of the kayak, um, so that you can kind of get that position of how you want to drift. So the way that I use it is generally there's an area I know where I want to fish, and it's maybe windy, the current's high, whatever reason. Usually, what I'll do if I'm able to, I like to just drift with the current first because you go as naturally as you can first, um, and then utilizing usually with my fish finder with GPS, I'm keeping track of my track, and then if I know I'm going to be drift fishing, I'll just every single time I get a hit, I'll mark it, and then keep marking. I get a hit or get a hit, and eventually you'll develop a sense of like, oh, okay, this is the drop offs are right here, so I need to really focus on drop offs, or I really need to focus on areas that are like 2 to 3 feet or something like that. So whenever you get to those areas, that's when you pop down that drift sock and you can work it slower, and especially with like with lures like the corky where you can't be drifting 100 miles an hour to work the corky right. You need to really slow down. Um, that drift sock just works wonders to helping find those areas or fish those areas, I should say.
Any name brand, or it's just a drift sock
Yeah,
for.
well, the Marine Raider, that's the one that the Academy has, and like I said, that's the one that I've had since like 2011 or 2010, and it came with the Tarpon 160 that I bought used from somebody else. So he had it for however long, many years before that. So like I said, that thing's been running strong. Actually, it still has the same rope on it that
Nice, nice.
he came with. So yeah, it just lasts forever, and it's like I think it's like $13 or something like that. So not one of
I don't
the
think they're
you can
$13
go, huh?
now. I think they're like 20, $25 now. I think
No,
thrift
no,
store.
no. I just looked up online. The small
They're
one is
still
thirteen
13 bucks.
dollars. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, out of in terms of the overall scheme of kayak accessories, it's probably one of the cheaper things that you can get. So,
Paul said Hobie makes one for money.
oh yeah, you
uh,
put the Marine Raider, you put the $13 one, attach the Hobie logo on it. It's like a $50 one probably. So,
that's funny. Yeah, it's what. So what are you like? Speaking of the next accessory you have, is the fish finder anywhere on yours as an
yeah,
accessory?
the fish finder is one of them. Yes.
Okay, because I really want to talk about that. Like, so I've been a guy fishing inshore, never used a fish finder. I've always used the bottom of the jig head, right? Like the bottom of the jig head tells me if I'm on shell. It tells me if I'm on mud. Like, and obviously having a sensitive enough rod to feel that, right? um Recently I'm like, man, I want to get me a good fish finder because I realize how important it is in today's fishing, especially offshore, seeing side imaging, because sometimes you'll be next to a school of fish and they might not be high side, but being in like 20 to 30 feet of water, that's a lot of water to cover. It's also important. I mean, a lot of people use it for inshore fishing too, but I think the side imaging is definitely something I'm more interested in, and down imaging, obviously, of course. But um, do you have one with both, or just down imaging?
I just have one with down imaging. I've been wanting to get one with side scan. Like with so the reason why I haven't done that yet is because the I use low rants just because it's easy to integrate it into your Hobie kayak with the Hobie Guardian plate on the bottom. Um, and or at least I think it's called the Guardian plate. But
Yeah,
with
that's correct.
the
It's the Guardian. Yeah.
okay, yeah, so you have that, but if you want side scan and down scan, um, you need the triple shot transducer, which is a much bigger transducer, which means that on the most of the kayaks, like my Revo, it instead of laying flush with the hull, you have to get it's protruding out from the hull because it's so long that it doesn't fit in that transducer plate. And
I think
I'm
they fit in the Guardian, no?
yeah,
Those.
so the guard I think the Guardian is for like the bigger kayaks, like the Pro Angler or maybe even the Outback too. That they have the newer Outback, they have that Guardian plate.
Right.
But the triple shot doesn't fit into the smaller ones like they have for the Revo, like I have. So you would need a an attachment that allows it to sit not flush with the hull. Um, I actually have it because I was thinking I have the plate and I was thinking about getting that triple shot transducer, but I just never could never do it just because the areas that I fish and the way that I the way that I abuse my kayak, I don't want to put something that's not flush with the hole. So yeah, Burley Pro, Paul's
Yeah,
our
he made. I was
chef.
about to say it. I was waiting for
Yeah,
you to finish. I
yeah,
actually
Burley
bought
Pro.
one from Burley Pro. I paid $75 for it. I ended
Yeah,
up giving it away. Uh, I was like, man, somebody said they wanted it. I said, man, I give it to you. I send it to you. I sent them. I think it was on this page, on this podcast. I sent it to somebody for that Burley Pro, but this was like years back, so I'm
yeah.
pretty sure they modified it to be a little bit more. I don't know. It was pretty straightforward, man. Just had the
Yeah,
little
yeah,
drop
you know,
down cup.
it's a real easy install, but it doesn't sit flush with the hull.
Yeah.
And I'm just worried that, especially with the way I use my kayak and the wares I fish, I just didn't want something that was like that. Uh, so, um, but yeah, so I have Fish Finder on here, and low rents is
I'll
I
tell you
like
what.
it.
If you guys can share with us, the guys that fish with side scan, and I've been looking at what is it? Hummingbird. So if you guys could share with us which ones y'all recommend for side scan and down scan, durability is a plus with us. At least for me, it definitely has to be durable. I'm open to like. even putting an accessory on the side to drop down. I actually created one when I first bought the Lowrance 3D imaging one. I bought one. I built a crate where it had two pins and it had an aluminum arm, and the aluminum arm would fold up and had two pins you'd put in, and then when I pull the two pins, you could pull it out and it'll fall down right below the kayak, right on the side of the kayak, right below, so you can get your imaging, and you put the two pull pins back in a different slot. Somebody ended up buying that for me from me because I was like, man, I think I used it at a Ride the Bull tournament, and it held in that big current. It was like strong, strong current, and that aluminum arm in that crate just fastened to my kayak and held. But I ended up selling it because I just didn't use it enough. Now I'm just like, man, I should have kept it. But I'm pretty sure there's better technology now.
Yeah,
So
they have like the some I forgot which company makes it, but it's called the Switchblade. They have those. Yak Attack I know makes it. Scotty makes one where it's a in the water transducer over the side. I just personally don't like those just because it's another thing to get caught on. Um, but I know it's very popular out there, and especially now with the bass guys because they have that live target kind of
right.
sonar, and it can't be in the hull or it can't be in underneath the kayak with the plate. It has to be in the water next to the kayak, unobstructed. So they
Or
need
sometimes
something
they
like
put
that.
them, yeah, they sometimes they put it right by the trolling motor or on the trolling motor, right? You
Yeah,
seen that one?
yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and so they also because it's a live feed of like basically down there, they you need to be able to reach and turn it. So they have all those things out there, but with with fish finders, I do want to mention that like low rants, I don't like the way. So I'm kind of in the air about how I'm going to word this, but um recently, so they made you right now they have like the Hook 2 series. So back back in the day, it started with the Elite, and then it came out with the Hook series, and now it's a Hook 2 series. Um, and the Hook 2 series is now entry level model, whereas back then you could buy the Elite and the Hook series, and those were mid range from their from their upper end models. Now with the Hook 2, it's completely entry level. A lot of them have like the Hook 2 4X, which is the 4-inch screen, and it doesn't have GPS. Yeah, now they have the Reveal. The Reveal, which is their the Hook 2 Reveal, which is their mid range now. Phil in the chats saying that the Reveal is their mid range, where the Hook 2 is completely entry level. And I think you need like the Hook 2 7 size, so the 7-inch screen, which is, for I have a 7-inch, and that's great. But for some of the kayaks, you just need a 4-inch, and it doesn't have GPS. It's just it has GPS, quote unquote GPS, where it all it does is just track where you go. It doesn't have maps, which I really like maps because you can just mark the crap out of where your spots are going to be. Um, so I would just pay attention to the features, especially with low rents. If you get like an X, if it has an X in it, just pay attention to it, and just be wary.
Are you leaning towards getting like another kind of brand, maybe like Humminbird, or you gonna stick to Lowrance?
Yeah. So like I said, I have the older versions. I have like a 7 right now, which I'm probably gonna use forever. Uh, I was tempted. I came across a deal for like a 9-inch screen, but I think that's just too big. It already looks like with the 7-inch, I have a TV on my kayak. I have it all decked out too. I have the visor on it
You're like,
for
oh, I'm
this.
watching Jeremy Wade on this TV.
Yeah, exactly. um, and Yeah, so I think the 7 is perfect, but really for most kayaks you just need a 4 or 5, really. And if you have really bad eyes, go up to a 7. I just like it just because I got a good deal on the 7, and I'm fine with it. Um, just like I said, just be wary of the newer Lowrances, getting into the Hook 2. the entry level models with that.
So let's move on to the next important accessory. What are you thinking? You should.
Um, So actually, Curtis mentioned has one of my items on here. Which, by the way, again, just to reiterate, guys, we are live every other Tuesday. If you want to join us live, go to facebook.com/. One Last Cast Podcast, or search One Last Cast Podcast on YouTube, and you can find us and chat with us there. Um, and you can talk to us, ask questions, give feedback, or whatever that is. Curtis did the 360 light for night fishing. And that kind of goes along with safety too, but definitely a 360 light. I like, especially tournament days, I like launching really early. That way that I'm not rushing to get to where I want to go. One tournament, I believe first cast is like at 6:15 or something like that. And I'm like, oh, it's not going to take too long for me to get to where I want to go. And I launch at 6 o'clock. Um, and I was realizing that I wasn't gonna make the, first cast for where I wanted to start fishing. I was sprinting, huffing and puffing with my Hobie, just going as fast as I could. By the time I got there, like at 6:25 or something like that, I was exhausted. I was beat. And I literally just staked out and I just laid back and I'm like, okay, I need to take a break. And the only reason why I stopped my break was because I heard a trout bust up and some right in front of me. So I was like, okay, I need to stop. But um launching really early, you need that 360 light. So every single company makes it. Yeah, Railblazer makes one, Scotty makes one, though I don't like the Scotty one just because of the little dim. Um, yeah, you can find plenty of online do-it-yourself ones with like flashlights. Um, I personally run the Fam Light. David Fam's local here in Houston. He makes an awesome product, and
Even if he
I
fixes it for you guys, if it messes up, stuff like that, just
yeah.
reach out to him. If you get him a light and it's not working up to par, he usually fixes it for you. So that's a good thing about being local here in Galveston area. I don't
Oh
know
yeah,
what this.
I actually I positioned one time. I positioned the fam light right behind me in a crate, and on a backswing on my cast, my super spook just smashed the plastic housing. I cracked it, um, and basically it unseated the bulb. I thought I broke it, and I told him, hey, if can you fix this, and he fixed it for me. So that's one of the benefits of getting a local guy.
Me, I use the I have a fan light too. That thing's super bright, man. If you're out there in the middle of the bay, you need a fan light, man. That thing light up the whole area. I think there's a picture on Facebook on DSK for where I was in the kayak and the whole back was lit up, and that's how bright it was. I think it was me and Justin Simpson went out to Matagorda. There's no lights out there. Um, well, anyways, but I used the Railblazer one. That one's been lasting real long, real light. It comes like a skinny stick, and then it's bulb. And man, I've left that light on for hours, man. And then it takes 3 AAA batteries. You just toss them in there, and I put it through heck and back, and it's been one that's been lasting forever for me. Um, I like that one just because it's a little bit lighter. I don't have to carry a battery box with me. I don't have to do any of that. I just toss it in one of my rod holders. I have a Crable rod holders, and it's ready to go. I use the Railblazer, and then it's the ones where you just twist the top and it just lights up.
Yeah.
So
And the reason why I don't like that is because, but in this case, you kind of solved the issue there. Is whenever it gets light out, I feel the need to turn it off just because my parents have always instilled, whenever you're not using it, turn it off. And in a Revo, I don't want to stand up in my kayak to reach back and turn it off. So, um, but I do want to tell a funny story with the fan light, and we'll move on to our next item after that. But I was out fishing uh over in Chocolate. I launched from the 2004 bridge, and my buddy was supposed to meet me, and he was like, "I'm running late, just launch, and uh we'll uh we'll I'll meet you I'll meet up with you later." So I launched, and but we didn't talk about which way we're going. Where we're going to go upstream or go down towards the bay. Um, and I didn't realize that. And I decided to go out towards the bay, um, and I launched and I was going, and my buddy he calls me. It's like, hey, I'm on the 2004 bridge. I just realized which way are we go. Oh, I see you. Never mind. He saw me.
Those lights are that bright for
He just
sure.
saw me
Yeah.
going down towards the bay. He's like, I'll meet you out there. I was like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to talk about our a good pair of pliers too. Before time's up, but
Yeah.
I these actually come in real handy. These pliers right here, these long ones. These are from Landers. These come with the warranty on them. So if they break or miss up, this is pretty old, and these have saved my butt when you get sharks on your. Sometimes you run into a lot of sharks out in the bay, and these right here, you don't have to worry about losing a pinky like that other guy did on the video. You just put this around the base of the hook or close to the edge of the hook. Just hold on to it, and most likely the shark will come off on its own or try to just pull it out with this. This is one that I use for sharks or toothy critters that have it way deep down lodged. Obviously, you don't want to stick your hand in there and lose your hand. And then for inshore, I use these. These also, they have a little clipper on it right here, and these pliers right here. Obviously, it float. If I drop it in the water, it'll the whole thing will float. So I think I've lost maybe I want to say somewhere close to 10 pliers. One of them was like I thought I released a trout and I released the pliers, and I still had my pliers in my hand, or I still had the trout in my hand and the pliers were gone. It's one of those things where I just got up way too early, brain dead on the water. But I've lost several pliers, but putting a float on it really helps out. Got the little snips to cut the line. Obviously, you can get some with the little nose on it to help with the change out the rings on them, the ring crimp on the end, and then some come with crimps. But these are by Landers, and these also come with the warranty. Local person here in Galveston or Texas coast, actually. If you have any issues, you take it back to him. He'll fix it, no problem.
Yeah, that's awesome. And just with any of these accessories, investing in quality stuff is always important, just because you want it to last. Um, I especially if you think about pliers and how many pliers that you go through, how many pliers you lose. Getting a leash for stuff like that is really important. All my pliers are now leashed, um, because I've done the same thing where I have a fish in my hand, or I've done the same thing where I just like drop the pliers. I'm like, oh shoot, but oh okay, that's fine. It's all leashed to my weight box or whatever it is. So yeah, definitely getting some quality stuff. I know before the show you showed me a your measuring tool.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right. This is one that I used to use because it like folds out, right? And the problem. Look how dirty it is. I will clean it though. It's being used. So this one actually, I like this one because it goes up to 36 inches, and
And I think that's a Yak Gear one, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, yeah. Man, this is. T- I should have cleaned it. My bad.
Done.
I just realized how dirty it is. Look at that. It's got like this is where pretty much the belly of the beast lays, and then right here, and then your tails. But I like the 36 one, right? Because the 28, sometimes the 28s are the stiff ones that don't fold up. They just take a. It's hard to find that spot, that sweet spot in your kayak for it. This right here, I think, is a total of 12 inches, right? So it folds up like that, and you could put it anywhere. And for me, it's a lot more easier to carry around than a big old 28 inch or one, or however big you like to use it. And yeah, and I like the fact that it covers 36 inches, so that's a good thing.
Yeah, you want to make sure you get a measurement on that 36-inch trout.
40, it's actually, you got a
But
40-inch trout. That's what's going around now.
yeah, but I do definitely want we remiss to not mention that if you especially for the freshwater guys when they do all these catch and release tournaments. just make sure to get the measuring board that complies with your tournament. Um, I know they have specific boards that they use, so just make sure you have the right ones. Just because just getting whatever board, you have to comply with whatever rules that they have with
Yeah.
that. I personally run a check it stick, um, and I'm just very very careful with that.
See, like here's the problem with the check it stick. I've actually been next to a guy that used one check it stick, and then he brought his fish in and it was over. But on his check it stick, it was 28 or right a hair under 28. When he went to the weigh in, it was over. So they put both the check it sticks together, and one of the check it stick was slightly off. So yeah, I definitely these are accepted in a lot of tournaments. These one the
Yeah,
Yak Gear ones, but I mean, if you're fishing tournaments, try to my suggestion would be try to match the check it stick at the weigh-in or the captain's meeting to make sure, because people make mistakes happen. I don't know how that happened. I don't know if he had it on something that somehow missed with it or tampered it. I don't know all that reason. I just know that both the check it sticks didn't match.
yeah, and
uh,
now they have tools now like to help push the fish in, to make sure that that pinch the tail the right way and all that stuff. So, but yeah, definitely try to match with whatever they're using. Um, that way that you don't
Captain
get
meetings are very important.
yeah
Make sure you guys are on the same clock, the same measuring tools, what's accepted, what isn't accepted. Stuff happens, but I know these are accepted in a lot of tournaments for sure.
yeah
um Check and stick is supposed to be the one true measurement, but just like fishing, you can't rely on it.
yeah.
There's something,
And we have Fidencio asking do yardsticks work, and I was like, yeah, they work. I don't know if you want to carry a yardstick with you on the water.
use it also as a polling device in the shallow waters of your yardstick.
Yeah.
No,
Uh,
no, I'm just teasing. But yardstick, I mean, whatever works, right?
yeah. Yeah, I think our comments really more towards tournaments where having that specific measurement is very important. Um,
Yeah,
I,
that 28 mark, it's a tough one. I've seen them over and under a lot of times. Most when you're bringing in a fish, we in Texas coast we have tournaments here. Our redfish slots from 20 inches to 28 inches, and I've seen a lot of people push the envelope on that 28-inch mark, and you roll the dice sometimes, and sometimes I even seen the best of the best bring in a fish that was slightly over, and it happens. So
yeah,
just
sometimes you push a little too far.
yeah, yeah, exactly, it
Yeah.
happens. I always tell people you bring it in at 28, they can go either way. That's the gamble you're going to take. And people take that gamble, and sometimes it pays off, and sometimes it doesn't work
I
in
just
their favor.
I just tell them just catch that 27.5. That's like 10 pounds. Why
Yeah,
can't you
there
do
you go. Just catch that.
that?
Just catch that twice. Yeah,
But
yeah. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I have one more on here. And we kind of skirted around a little bit the stakeout pole.
Hmm.
Uh, the Yak Attack park and pole, they have one that's $100. Just get a fiberglass pole. You can, if you want to do the DIY yourself option, as in get a fiberglass tree stake uh, and just make a anchor point onto it, and that's your stakeout pole. But the reason why I like that one, so the Yak Attack one compared to the Yak Gear one, Yak Gear also makes one. The Yak Gear one, or at least the ones that I looked at previously, they were just too thick. Whenever you're looking at like sticking to hard sand, you want something a little bit thinner to drive in a little bit better. Um, that's the reason why I have Yak Attack. But there's other options out there, and also they have the park and pole system where you can also extend it from like 8 foot to like 12 foot or something, whatever it is, and it makes a really good push pull option for your kayak. So that's also a really cool feature about that.
I'm surprised none of us mentioned the power pole. There's a lot of people that use power poles. I
Yeah,
don't, but
I've been thinking about so as an FYI for everybody, I'm thinking I have a Lynx. I've been loving the Lynx lately, and I'm really heavily considering moving to it. Um, and with that. with the links, obviously one of the options you can have is put the micro power pole in the back, and I'm so tempted to put it on there, uh, but we'll see. So
How versatile is that Lynx, man? My buddy takes it offshore and he just loves it, man. He takes it
I
everywhere with them.
so the big thing that for me with it is so the reason why I love the Revo is because I value speed over stability. Because I don't need to stand up, or at least I thought that previously. So whenever you're fishing for redfish, I now know you need to stand up, especially shallow waters, oysters everywhere. You need that extra angle. Um, and having stability isn't a bad thing, especially as the older you get. I'm not as graceful as I used to be. But with the links and how light it is, you kind of make up for that speed and you get the stability. So it's kind of the best of both worlds. It's another good thing because it's so light. It's just really easy to load and unload at the end of the day because it's so light. So
I also wanted to add the accessories of motor, man. I am totally like in love with the motor does for a kayak. No, I don't want a boat, right? I don't want a big old thing that I got to maintenance and everything. But a little electric motor on my kayak to scoot me around, especially on the long journey. Yeah, it's so appreciative. I'm not a big speed fan. I like a little bit more torque, a little bit more power. If they have one, go feel free to share it. I'll see what it's about.
yeah, they have the
But
K1 now,
what is that? What
the
torque
Bixby
is that?
K1. It's a
Is
new
it a
the
55 thrust or what is it?
I don't remember exactly, but Bixby now has a K their K1 model, which is their bigger motor.
Okay, maybe I'll try something like. Well, I got one, the one that Michael builds. But yeah, that I just really love what the motor does for my kayak. It scoots me, gets me around. It's a lot more relaxing, and I guess I'm at that point where I'm just enjoying. We're not working so hard with the legs, and especially going offshore. Sometimes you're fighting against the current, and you're trying to come in. You have that motor, and it just keeps going, it keeps pushing, versus just trying to find that motion, taking a break. Sometimes you get fatigued, you don't know it, and you just go a little bit slower. But I'm really loving the motor as an accessory on the kayak. I think that's just a pretty good thing.
Yeah, I've been running that Bixby for a while, and I've been loving that. And like I said, it's just with the Revo, I'm going like 4 or 5 miles an hour, just cutting through the water. Um, Even I made a long run with Curtis one day, and I was just towing him along. Um, and we went. I
Curtis
think
is the motor guy from way back when. I remember
yeah, he was
seeing.
like one of the original motor guys, but
Yeah.
but the newer Outback, and we were running I think probably around 4.5, maybe 5 miles to get to where I wanted to fish, and I towed him there and back on a single battery for the Bixby. Um, Actually, I didn't really tow him back. We fished our way back, but I towed him there. No, I towed him back. We towed him back, and it was great. You know, just going that against the current, going there in the morning. We wanted to get there early. It would have been tough just pedaling there. Um, Not tough as it's just as you get older, you get more lazy, and I'm beginning to.
I'm on that page too. I'm enjoying it a little too much. Like, man, I got to make sure my batteries are going. I actually
Yes.
pushed mine with the 50 amp PPV or FPV or something like that. It's
Mhm.
really light. Like it's a 50 amp. The box is like this big and it's really light. It's like kind of a little bit bigger than those small deer feeder batteries. Weighs about maybe 14 pounds and it's a 50 amp, 12 volt. So it's a little bit pricier. But that's the one that I use. Is I use that one, and that one can get me. That one can get me offshore and back, and I still have juice. And I'm usually going like 5 to 6 miles out, and going around places. So I'm doing about a good 10 miles, and that battery's still. I would never. I have a backup one, so I have two of them, and I usually never use the second one just in
Yeah.
case.
Yeah, I bought an extra battery from a Bixby, and I've hardly ever used it. So, but yeah, there. I know we could, kind of dedicate a whole entire episode to just motors. Um. So, oh yeah, your utility knife. Make sure to have that.
Yeah, always have a knife on me, just in case these fish start tripping, I gotta shank them real quick, you know.
So yeah, that kind of rounds out my list. I know there's tons more that we can talk about. Kind of running up on our hour. Just there's always not enough time to talk about what we want to talk about.
There never is. There never is. I feel like maybe that's half of the stuff. There's at least another half that I'd like to go over, but you know, time's out. We don't want to kill your guys' evening, but we always talk yak talk here, so you can always join in the next episode.
Yeah. So before we hop off, definitely want to give another shout out to our sponsors for a printing. If you're looking for um, custom gear such as shirts, towels, or buffs or anything like that, Aaron can definitely hook you up with that. Search for a printing on Facebook, and you can get his contact information. Looking for a good Facebook group to be part of, Dirty South Kayak Anglers, DSKA. Just go and search that up and join that group. Talk fishing and kayaking here on the Texas coast. Knocking Tail Lures, my go-to soft plastic. Merriel loves them too. They not only do they swim on the fall, but they have internal rattle that just drives fish crazy. Uh, Really looking forward to this flounder season coming up. Been catching good flounder recently, but looking forward to using those again to great effect. Also, if you're looking for residential or commercial real estate here in the Houston area, reach out to Brittany Solesky. She will hook you up. And as she said, told me before, she will catch you the best deal out there. Reach her at 281-740-0498 or at Brittany at grindstonereg.com. Merrill, I know last time I kind of blinded you with the last word. Do you have another last word before we hop off for today?
I actually wrote something. I'm glad
You
you asked.
did.
No, I'm just kidding. No, I didn't. But now, yeah, I do a little bit, right? Persistence, right? Sometimes some seasons are tougher than others, but always be persistent. Never give up. Keep pushing till you find that puzzle piece. We all been there, and sometimes even us more experienced people, we it happens to us. So don't get discouraged. Just keep pushing forward, um, and you'll find that missing piece to your puzzle, or the fishing will just get better, right? So just be persistent.
I think I like it much better as you keep working on it, or you just keep fishing until it gets better.
Yes, there you go. Never give up,
um,
right? That's what I.
yeah, never give up, or just wait for it to get better. um, I do want to piggyback off what you said because I think that is a very good. I'm going through it now. Just persistence and going through the motions. Um, I've mentioned it for the past few episodes that this year has been my kind of my one of my worst years, and I know the reasons why. I've kind of chronicled them here. That this year I really wanted to focus on redfish tournaments, and I've been fishing specifically for redfish for three. Yeah, it's a little over half the year. And because of that, I haven't been doing what I normally do, following the trout and figuring out the patterns. And it's been tough um, whenever I'm going
It's
back to
been
trout.
saltier too, just to give you the heads up. It's been saltier too.
Yeah.
And there is a different pattern this
Hmm.
year than there was last year.
Yeah.
Is what I've learned. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I feel like if I was fishing for trout earlier in the year and doing what I normally do, I would have figured it out.
Right,
And but
right.
this year it has just been so tough. Um, like I, for sure, my if I go through my logbook, my fish numbers overall are down compared to years past. Um,
He's
but
not catching hundreds anymore. He's only catching like 50 to 70 now. So, man, what
um,
a terrible day. Only
yeah,
caught
what a
40.
terrible year it's been. But I do know that just going through these motions right here, it really reminds me of whenever I started fishing really, heavily back in college, and I'm learning again on a not again, but more on a more consistent basis. I'm learning more new things, and I'm really excited because as I keep doing this, the payoff is going to be great. Like it's going to
Oh,
be
yeah.
huge. Um, or like you said, it's a fishing is just going to get better. So.
Right? Because if it's terrible, you can only go one way. There's only one way to go when you're on the bottom, right? Just up, you know.
Yep. And before we sign off, I do want to mention that Fidencio on our chat has been asking when we're doing a meet and greet. I do want to schedule one probably sometime in the fall. Merrill and I will talk about that, and we'll schedule something out in the fall. That way, we can just do a meet and greet and just head out and fish and get to finally meet everybody and chat. So be on the lookout for that. But that is it from us at the One Last Cast podcast. Feel free to download us anytime at one of your favorite podcasting platforms: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, etc. But until next time, tight lines and have a good one.
Take care, guys.